Welcome to Dual Podcast Empire Profits on Air Workspace session series. And I am Majesty AliNICOLE WOW. And once again, back with the awesome, amazing Brenda Lynn. So exciting that we have been working on her Dual Podcast Empire and setting that up for her business and how she's going to expand what she does on so many different levels to make an impact and an income. So Brenda Lynn, let's jump into today's session.
Great. I'm ready for you.
Yeah, so we are resuming now. We've been on break and you've been pondering a couple of things in terms of what we discussed within the last session. And let me just give a preface to those who may be joining us for this series for the first time. These particular series, these workspace sessions, they are more like intensive. So it's more like a VIP day intensive where we have a blocked out amount of time that we are focusing on key aspects in short segments, and then there's assignments that are done in between, and then we return. And we want to provide tremendous value for you as Brenda Lynn is allowing her process to kind of be publicly displayed in a sense, so that you get to see her building process. And also we're here to help provide some legwork for you so that you can jumpstart your success with this initiative. And then just know that myself and also Brenda Lynn, we're here to help support you as you start to build this next level for yourself as well. So we just wanted to have you join in. Within the description is going to be the initial training that Brenda Lynn listened to that helped to get this jump started for her. Also, there's a link to the playlist of the different workspace sessions around this particular initiative, so you can be able to enjoy those and go back and re-listen and revisit, those when you need to. There's also related products within the description that can help you to take what you're doing to the next level. All right, Brenda Lynn. So let's jump in.
Right. I am ready.
Oh, great. So it's exciting because before the break, we were starting to do the building process around starting to kind of structure the different segments that you would start with.
Yeah.
And so I started introducing 3 areas out of the 6. There's 7, but we're just really going to just focus on just 6 core areas. The 7th aspect is what I will do some extensive initial consulting with you apart from this, particular initiative. So we talked about what your introduction segment could look like in terms of establishing your authority. And then the value proposition segments would be how you would start to build a know, like, and trust factor, and having 2 to 3 short segments around, whether they're previous trainings that you've rendered that you incorporate, or articles, or so that you want to let that be the inspiration for some of those segments. But it is about providing tremendous value. So we talked about that. And we also focused on you doing an empowerment series, maybe a 3 to 5 part empowerment series. And not to get too far ahead, there's a particular area that you mentioned that you would make part of the empowerment series. I'm kind of thinking that might actually, that topic get repositioned for the next layer that I'm going to speak with you about, and maybe incorporating a leadership empowerment segment. So I think the areas that we came up with were financial empowerment, prosperity empowerment, well-being empowerment, empathic empowerment, and I think leadership empowerment would be good for that.
We had talked about relationships.
So that's the one that I'm going to
think,
to get repositioned for this next strand coming up. Okay, so the next level would be to focus on signature empires. Okay.
Okay.
So after the empowerment series, then you want to focus on signature empires. So with the emotional intelligence aspect and the relationship aspect and the empowerment within those particular focuses, that really does come under one of your signature empires, which is UEQ.
Correct.
Yes. So that's an opportunity within that particular segment to let that empire be the highlight, the core focus, and you build a topic around that, and you actually can address these, different levels, within that. Also, you can, after we lay the groundwork, you can look to do segments on these other topics, and even expand the relationship one even more.
Yeah.
But something else you could consider is maybe the empowerment series, maybe you actually do, maybe 5 to 7 segments on that, and maybe you do have a relationship empowerment, within that too. So
Yeah.
just considerations.
Okay.
Yeah,
just all of these things you can just kind of dip into the surface of them.
Absolutely.
And then lead them to something down the road.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. So that will be good. All right. So your two, what we know to be your two signature empires are UEQ leadership and also awakening consciously, which is, metamorphosizing more into its own institute in a sense, but those are your two signature empires. So you want to have a segment for both of those.
Okay.
All right. And then that will focus on the core aspect. You do some type of, mini talk or so around a general premise. And then, as I mentioned, let that empire be what is the obviously inspiration for the segment. And when you do kind of a mini talk, then what can happen is that the empire itself and products that you have can be more like a back room.
Okay. Perfect.
So that's then those two segments that you would incorporate. So before I move forward to talk about the other aspects, do you see already in terms of the building with this for profitability?
Yeah.
And how, being able to introduce a range of the different layers of your brand authority, but also the products that you have, entry-level products that you have, that are easy yes products, for individuals to explore. And then bringing in your two signature empires, which are your, really signature training hubs, so to speak, that can invite another level for people who are definitely ready for a more expansive experience, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's definitely building the profitability the right way in terms of podcasting for business, right? So as I mentioned, you can have a mini talk that you do, and then let that empire itself be, kind of the highlights, so to speak, right? So what you'll find in those who are listening is that in this building process, what is taking place is that there is a very strong marketing communications base building up here. And because what she'll do is start to leverage these foundational segments, definitely for marketing, and positioning them within articles and different areas that, yes, this helps to build her authority on these multi-level layers that she has. And that's why it's the core focus on these before you start even focus on building followers, so to speak, is you want to lay the profitable foundation. And then we will, at another point, come and now more structure this into a profits model. Something that I need to mention, which I believe I did in another segment, is when building profitability for podcasting for business, there are 3 different models that you have to have in place and they work cohesively, more like a symphony. They seem like they're all in one, but you need to actually categorize them. And so when you have, there's actually more than three, but we're primary focus. I'll put multimedia marketing in one. Multimedia marketing communications, that is a strand. And that's a model. Okay, that's a marketing model. And then there's the business communications aspect, the business profits, the business model for the podcast. And then there's the profits model. So those are three different models that you work with. And it's a very simple process to be able to put these into play. Not something that we're going to get into during these segments.
Can you repeat those? You had profits model, you had business model.
And then you have your multimedia marketing model.
Okay.
And so all of this is marketing communications, business communications, and really sales communications.
Right.
So yeah, so those are different levels. So after your signature empires, though the segments for those, then you will focus on positioning to speak and consult. So there'll be segments that will focus on you being able to demonstrate who you are as a communicator, and allowing that to kind of lead into speaking opportunities, but also consulting opportunities. So you want to have a few strong segments, and they can be mini talks. You can do radio webinars, so to speak. And the radio webinars, those can be longer segments. So if you want to do a 30 to 40, something segment, even believe it or not, even though that segment can go up to an hour, because then you would do some positioning of a back room or products or so, at the end of that talk, or just leading them into the description, so to speak. So that's something. And if you do have other trainings that you want to incorporate into that pre-recorded, you can incorporate those too. And so you want your foundational range to have diversity in terms of what the segments are, but also the lengths.
Okay.
And so then when you get more into what you're going to be doing, you can focus more on the shorter segments, even though we're talking about that now too, just to jumpstart out the gate. But sometimes there are going to be segments that you will probably, carry on. You probably do, some extensive talking around, and that's okay. Sometimes,
this sets up the solo part of the podcast really well. Like the foundation is really clear. It's really coming together for me.
And we're going to segue to the dual aspect in terms of the interviewing aspect.
Right. But even within this framework, I can see when you set it up in this way, where you could work in other experts in a field.
Absolutely.
Add value to the signature empires or to any of those other segments. Is that
absolutely accurate? You can definitely weave in. It's just that initially you want to set these, and I'm going to give you a simple format to do this, to set to actually have these in place first, because we're going to get to the working with bringing in other guest experts and for the interview, aspect. But out the gate, you want to be able to have these different segments already on the platform. And even having them already on the platform, even before, like I said, trying to, again, build an audience around, this, because you'll be able to market with these. So having the ones that position you to speak and consult, again, doing mini talks or radio webinars, so to speak. And even if you only have one or two of those just starting out. That's fine. Then the next one is kind of having a holistic marketplace type of segment. Now, let me explain what that is definitely for the listening audience. Brenda Lynn, you probably have some familiarity with this, just even based on a lot of how my operations run in terms of marketplace. What this looks like is because you have a wide range of opportunities. Where can you then lead people to the cohesiveness of the experience. So like you have a variety of products on Gumroad. You have several publications on your Amazon page, right?
Yeah.
And you have
structured courses on other course platforms.
Absolutely. And you also have you have courses, like you said, on other platforms. You are a part of other teaching institutes. And so you can provide some type of segment that really talks about, kind of, I don't necessarily want to title it for you, but something that is around, holistic living or so, or the importance of that, just a focus where at the end of what you talk about, you can actually then lead people into these different levels of your experience. So if someone wants to, focus on career development or a holistic approach, you could send them to your Gumroad platform where you've got a great majority of courses for a variety of different areas, right?
Right.
And so then your Amazon authors page. So you want to look at having a segment that, has a focus, on, the lifestyle dynamics, or however, just something that ties it in. And that's what I call them, a holistic marketplace experience, because you're bringing them into a one-stop shop type of initiative. Now, something that you could do, and those who are listening, is that you actually can create an article or a blog post on a particular site and incorporate all of those links in there. So it's taking the Linktree concept, and Linktree is a platform that allows you to position your signature links in a very cohesive structure, or a streamlined structure, I should say, where people can go to that one place instead of, going to 10 different websites or so trying to look it up. Everything is there, and they can just click on where they want to go because it's all there. So you can actually create that in an article or a blog post.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And then put that in the description instead of having tons of links in your description.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah.
And that is another layer of value too, because when you set that up, you create some type of article around the concept, right?
Yeah.
And then you have the those links that are listed there that invite people.
And yeah, that's a really good point, because when you put so many links into a description, people go into overwhelm. They don't know where to go, so they don't go anywhere. When you can put one link in there and link them to an article that explains the progression of each of those links, that alleviates that problem.
Yeah, right. So that definitely does. And so in this case, that's what you want to create, is something that can categorize the range of what you provide, right?
Yes.
And have that. So having these types of segments to build with first, do you see how that is business building for profitability?
Yeah.
And income, right?
Yeah.
Right. So what we're not going to talk about in terms of another segment, but I do want to introduce this, is positioning for more high-end, initiatives, even though the positioning to speak and consult kind of consists of that, but the next layer does build on more of the high-end profitability, even though all of this will be leveraged for high-end. But you want to remember, I said that you and your authority is what we want to look at as the high-end experience, the big rock experience, right? But we want to have these different layers put in first for groundbreaking, laying the foundation for impact income. Right. So now what we can do is start to talk about being able to now look at how you start bringing in guests.
Okay.
And yes, and starting to make the determination in terms of Do you bring guests on once a month, starting out? Or is it, twice a week? Because when you have this dual podcast aspect, it's not that you have to have like half and half,
Yeah.
the point is that you're leveraging this, of course, like I said, for business, and being able to be of tremendous value, but then incorporating others into the mix. So again, others into the mix doesn't mean that they have to be a regular part of what you're doing. You could have, on our monthly featured guest is this person. And so the reason why I'm bringing this up, especially for those of you that maybe you don't have a large network, or maybe you don't want to get into doing too much of that. If you look at having a guest a month, that's only 12 guests a year.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty manageable.
Absolutely. And also too, you can also look at during the season, just doing a kind of a guest radio summit where let's say that your podcast is going to be one you're more is your the solo podcast aspect, but how you still benefit from having guest features is then you do maybe have a season where you do have guests that come on, right? And it doesn't have to be a lot. So you get to customize this accordingly, but there's tremendous benefits to having, again, a solo podcast and a dual podcast, whether they're separate. But in this case, what we've been building with Brenda Lynn is one that is incorporated into, one one platform. Now, let me play the devil's advocate again in a few areas, because when it comes to having podcasts with guests, now you have to remember is you're working with people outside of you. So that can get into, you have to know your temperament around this, and what you can tolerate in terms of whether people will operate, in a time frame or however, whatnot. So there are things that you do have to consider. So but when starting this, again, I think leaning into it with first, again, putting your big rocks in and your pebbles, building that framework up for your profitability for business so that you make sure that your branding doesn't get oversaturated with a podcast platform that has chronic guest features. Then you want to think about that. And then you also can think about, are the guests that I'm bringing on, or the guests that I actually want to do collaborations with, to still make this a win-win, even when I have them on in a segment. So I talk about that in the training that you'll hear. And then I have other products that you can explore that show you different levels of how you can actually build your podcast empire, but also just, signaturally focused on having the duality aspect. So that's something like with Brenda Lynn, initially, is that she's looked at already, okay, here's what I'm going to be building for my brand initially. Now, when I start thinking about how do I want to start off with incorporating guests, now some of you, I will just put this out there because I've seen this happen several times when helping others to build their podcast empires, where I have them focusing on, yes, they're building their brand in the podcast aspect, not even worrying about guests at the beginning. What ends up happening is that people then start asking, can I come on your podcast? So, and that typically does happen, is that when they see someone has a podcast out there, even if it's someone that's being a solo podcast, then people start asking, can I come on your podcast? Something else I want to mention, and Brenda Lynn, this is something obviously for you, to take notes on, and to think about, is you need to have a guest profile. And what I mean by a guest profile is so that there's not just any and everybody that says, hey, I want to be on your podcast.
Right.
So you the guests that you bring on, you do want some specifics in terms of, is it by invitation only,
Okay.
guest, or are you open to having guests, that reach out to you to, you have a conversation with them and you bring them on, but you do need to have some expectations or some things that you've already crafted out in terms of what you expect of guests when they participate, with your podcast, and
Okay.
some type of format. So those are things just to think about,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
to consider.
That's good. I like that because I tend to go off and talk to a whole bunch of people and I love what everybody's saying. And
Mhm.
all of a sudden you get this mishmash of people
Right.
on your podcast that there's no cohesion to, like, they don't really fit in. It's just that I love the conversation that I had.
Yes, that you love the conversation, right?
So
And
I like the idea of, so for example, I've got my UEQ, which deals with emotional management and the importance of managing emotions.
Mhm.
And I just, the other day had a professor from the University of Utah connect with me,
Mhm.
wanting to know more about the card games that we use for
Yes.
developing emotional intelligence. And he works in the area of migraines, people with severe migraines that have had no reprieve from them. And he's found through another tool that managing emotions was the only thing that helped people relieve their
Mhm.
migraine headaches.
Mhm.
He would be an awesome guest. I know exactly where he would fit. I know
Right.
the value that he would add.
Mhm.
He adds that other dimension of why emotions are important that I don't introduce in. So it's, if it's by invitation only, I can assess them, invite them, and fit them in where it's appropriate within my podcast format.
Absolutely. And to something that I want to bring up for you, but it also can apply to others, is that because you do have signature empires, you can focus that the guests that you bring on maybe are going to be ones that are signature to your primary empires
Yeah.
versus just any topic.
Yeah, that's, I think, what I would do for
Mhm.
sure, because my empires are pretty vast. Like when you get into the awakening consciously,
Mhm.
it covers every aspect.
Yes, right.
In that, there's different legs of that model as well. There's the physical, mental, emotional, financial,
Mhm.
uh, social, all of those aspects fit in, but being able to plot a guest at an appropriate time in an appropriate leg would make the experience much more productive for the listener.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's not
Right.
just random topics that that nobody else can make sense of why they're there. I can.
Right, exactly, right. But it may not, again, for business wise, that may not be the best route to go in terms of just, when you're bringing guests into the mix,
Yeah.
you want to also have opportunities to do, collaborations with individuals, and,
Yeah.
and be able to do featuring, that way. And I talk about that even in the training about, even creating products with some of your guests. And that's a way for, them to have an affiliate link of that product. And when they promote that podcast, they have their affiliate link for the product, and then you have it in your description or however they can market with it. So there's a variety of different ways, again, in terms of how you build out, for business. So before we sort of conclude, the best thing, I guess, at this point, I'm just kind of reviewing in my mind, because there's so much that we will continue to, consult, on, with this initiative. But setting up this way, and you thinking kind of initially in terms of, the dynamics with how you do the guest, so
Yeah.
let's say that you already have all of these segments done, right?
Right.
So would your next phase look like you having maybe two guests, or just one guest and then you kind of rinse and repeat what you're, doing with segments that you feel are the next level? How do you see leaning
I
into
could
the guest?
see doing at least 2 guests a month.
Okay.
And it could start out, I don't know if it'll end up that way, but it could start out with one for each of the signature empires.
Okay.
So having a guest on the emotional relationship front and
Mhm.
having a guest on the energetic, physical, mental, emotional health side of it.
Okay. All right. All right. So something else that I want to bring up before we sort of conclude here is one of the reasons why it's best to move the energy, if you will, in this way, building this way, is because what you're going to find is once you start doing this, you're going to take on another evolutionary catapult.
Yeah.
And then you will see a shift in kind of how you start to show up. And your business dynamics will be more solid and scalable and sustainable in a new way. Because honestly, when you go through this process, you're actually clearing out an older layer of yourself.
Right.
That feels real relevant to you now.
Yeah.
Right. But you'll start to kind of clear that out, and it clears the space because there's newer expansion that comes. That's where more of the profitability and your signature authority will come forth through this type of experience.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that happening just based on the work that I've done with you. As I've worked with my own metamorphosis.
Yes.
And things that were relevant are no longer relevant, and or things that fit one way in my life fit in a completely different way now.
They do. Right.
So I've been through that. With
You've
you.
been through that, right. And so you'll see
I
that
know exactly what you're talking about with it.
absolutely this will reveal a whole nother different level. And then
Yeah.
what you also find is that then when it comes to even the guests that you bring into the mix,
Yeah.
the nature of that will probably take on a different shape too. So, we'll just see. But I just wanted to throw that out there, that definitely it has the strong potential, to happen, for sure. So Brenda Lynn, do you feel like you have a solid game plan in terms
I do. I
of
absolutely do.
profitability here
I can see my
for your podcast here?
turned it off. Yes. I can see my definitely growing into this.
Yes.
I like the information is all great. A lot of the stuff that we've gone through is just sitting in my random access memory,
Yes.
and I'll have to figure out how to incorporate it once I get the other pieces in place, but it will all fall into place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, something I am going to recommend is that you actually, take a weekend out and do the pre-records, for this, or give yourself a week, to like if you want to go ahead and start doing the intro segment, you can do that for sure, and put coming soon on the platform. Also, I'm just going to mention that, Brenda Lynn's Brenda Lynn Experience podcast, we will have the link to her platform on Spotify. We will have that link in the description. And of course, there's information that you can learn about Brenda Lynn, as well, and the different strands of empires that she provides. But carving out the time, because remember, you're going to be doing shorter segments, and being able to go ahead and get those pre-recorded and then have those up because you can actually upload all those segments in one day if you choose, but if you split it up and just say, okay, well, I'll upload this many today and then this many the next day, or however, but you want to just have those there. And so you can let that be kind of your season one, if you will, and then just start marketing that and giving people a taste, a taste of that.
Yeah.
So that's just,
Okay.
considerations, for that. So I think that, in terms of what we've provided for the general public to get a taste of this experience and have your unique experience be there for them, and they learn more about you and start to build their empire too. I think this is a good, probably concluding point. We'll continue, of course, the consulting on the different levels of this. So we'll conclude this series here. So I would love to hear what your takeaways are, because I know that you've got to listen to some segments of mine too that can give you kind of some inspiration and examples, to jumpstart.
This was incredible, the amount of information that you provided.
Mm-hmm. God bless you.
Sorry, had to sneeze there.
Yeah.
Yeah, just the foundation. And I know that I'll zip through this when I finally wrap my head around it. It will come together very quickly.
Yes.
And then I'll be ready for another level.
Absolutely.
This to me was the perfect amount of information to get people inspired, to get the understanding that there's a different, easier, more profitable model out there, and get them working towards that. This was incredible, the amount of information that was provided. I don't think that my mind could have absorbed any more until I put some of the first steps into action anyways.
Yes.
So I think it's a great place to conclude, and more to come.
Absolutely. Awesome. That was magnificently stated. And I thank you so much, because you've been wonderful throughout this, process. I always enjoy, working with you, and definitely looking forward to how this blossoms and really launches. And we'll have to come back, and once things kind of get set up, and do a follow-up session, for others, so they can see that progression and then continue to be with you throughout your experience, for sure.
That would be great. Perfect.
Oh, great. Well, awesome.
Thank you, Nicole.
Oh, you're most welcome, and thank you. And so we're going to bring this Workspace session series to close here, and inviting you, of course, to look in the description, and you'll find a plethora of resources that can help you continue to build in the profitability podcasting-preneurial aspect. And again, Brenda Lynn's information will be in the description, as well. So we are wishing you the absolute best with this endeavor, and certainly reach out if you should need help. But again, in the description, there'll be a lot for you to definitely explore and consider, and go back and listen to this series several times. So we hope this has been valuable and beneficial, and we are wishing you the absolute best. Take care and stay blessed.